Hi everyone, Lauren here with Lauren Elizabeth Fine Art, and I help beginner through professional level artists reduce stress while mastering the art of animal art. So after posting a poll on the YouTube community, which I have linked down below, you guys, or the majority vote, was a horse tutorial. And I've been really into my galaxy art lately, and I just wanted to tie that in with this painting. So after everything, I decided on a unicorn galaxy painting, which guys, I love this one so much, and I know you'll love it too. It's definitely a longer one. It's an hour long, but it's doable. I break it down into steps for you, step by step. So if you're a beginner, you can do this. If you're advanced, you can do this as well. And yes, I do have a traceable printout for the drawing of this painting linked down below in the description box, as well as all the materials I used. So grab your cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's get painting. Alright, so we're going to get started. Make sure that you have transferred your traceable printout onto your canvas. Mine is actually a no-sided panel canvas. You can use one that's sided or not, it's up to you. This is an 8x10. And we're going to start with the background using a large flat brush. So whatever, I have my Benisi brand brushes here. Some are also fine touch brushes. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a navy blue, like a really dark background with our phthalo blue and our black. Want to make up enough, but this color goes pretty far, especially if you damp clean brush. So I'm just going to make sure I paint all around our sketch. I really like this texture. It wasn't on purpose, but I think it's just to do with this canvas, this panel canvas, which I don't use very often. And I really like it. I kind of like how there's, if you look closely, there's a lot of brush stroke. I don't know if I'll apply a second coat or if I'll use it. I guess we'll wait and see. We're going to be painting the hair over top. We want to make sure we have the background done first before we do any hair. And that's why I didn't draw it in, because we'll paint it in. I have a little bit of siding to do on mine, so don't forget about that for you if you have a sided canvas. Alright, so we don't really have to let that dry. We can just move on to the nose and eyes. I'm going to use a liner detail brush. Anything, just a rigger or a liner brush will do. And just with my black, I'm going to fill in the nostrils. Nostril, we have one here. When it comes to that eye, what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline the bottom with my black, still using my black. I'm going to take my black and just outline around those eyelashes that are really long. And then I'm going to come down inside this little space here. Just like that, with just black. I don't want to forget the top part of that, so over top the eyelashes are very dark. And that's when I'm gonna fill that area in with my black. Now I'm going to add some white to this. We're going to make a gray. So I'm just adding white to this black to create a dark gray. And I'm just going to fill in. It should be really dark, but not as dark as our black. You should be able to tell that it's a dark gray. And I'm going to fill this line all the way underneath. And it kind of cuts in up like that too. And this even follows back here. And I'm actually going to fill this in kind of. We're going to use our lighter colors too for that to make more sense. Now I'm not going to stop with that color, but I am going to change brushes. I'm using a round detail brush. This is size 8 fine touch. And we're not going to stop with that color. We're going to keep going with that dark gray. And what I'm going to do, what I'm going to use it for, is a few places underneath the jaw and around the jaw. So there's some gray that goes, and it should be lighter than that navy blue we made, by the way, but still dark. It's going to go under the jaw. It's going to go on that chin part. We don't want to lose it, so add a little bit of white if you're afraid you're going to lose it. I want to make sure I don't lose that, so I'm going to add a little bit of white. Now this gray cuts up a little bit in front of the nose and right below that nostril, and it kind of wraps around that line for the nostril. This also is going to be, it's just going to hug that jaw, it's just a bit on that jawline. And I'm just going to make some more because I'm kind of losing some of it. I'm going to mix up some more of the same color because I want to paint under the jaw here. There is a shadow that I've drawn in for you that is going to be covered with this gray. Now I never know how I'm going to paint these tutorials, and this is where my creativity just comes. I am going to, because I don't want to lose this darkness underneath this beautiful shading underneath the jaw, I'm going to go back to my background, lighten up my blue. I'm going to just add some white and some phthalo blue to my navy blue and lighten it up so that I don't lose that area. And I'm just going to blend that into my background so that this area is light. So I'm going to go in just even a little bit lighter with white and phthalo blue. Such a beautiful color. Okay, and as I work my way up, I'm going to paint over that background again, just to give it a second coat and to make it work with the changes that we've just applied. So gradually I'm going to add more phthalo blue and black. So what our painting should look like is it should be the darkest part should be in the upper left hand side, and then the lightest part should be right underneath the jaw. Using a small or medium flat brush, clean and damp, I'm going to mix lots of yellow ochre with a little bit of white. We want to lay down a dark base of yellow. We're going to create a dark yellow value instead of our gray. And so what I'm going to do, let's test that. That's pretty dark. I might add even a little bit more. And I'm going to add that to around the jaw. We should have, and I might pause just to go do that line with our gray. Remember that leftover gray that we were working on before we did that background? Well, let's make a little bit more of it because we forgot a little part, and I want to get that in right there before we move on to the lighter parts. And it comes out like that. All right, so I'm going to go back to my yellow. I'm even adding a little bit more yellow ochre. And I'm going to start working out. This is our darker value. We would normally use a gray, but we're using a dark yellow. Now I'm going to work on I'm looking for those darker areas, and I'm going to be very generous because we're going to be layering lights over top. And I'm seeing a lot of those darker areas around the snout here. Going to mix up some more. Really being careful not to go over that gray as best I can because I really want to keep that definition. All right, so we're going to continue on with this yellow, this dark yellow. There's some here on the other side of that shadow. It actually trails down by the hair. And it's also down here along the chest. I'm not going all the way up because there's going to be a strong highlight there. But I'll go along that line. I'm going to put a little bit right here behind the unicorn horn. And then the last place is just underneath here on the bottom part of the nostril. I've added some violet and some more white to my paint palette because we're going to be creating some lighter tones with our white into our yellows and then adding some purples. Yellow and purple are such great complements, so I'm going to really work that in. Alright, so let's add a lot of our white to this yellow, making it lighter for the next layer until we work up towards a white. And I'm going to get these areas, all the areas that we've left white, I'm pretty much going to fill in with this light yellow. Well, that could have been worse. This is one of 2 times that I drop my canvas into my paints. This is why it can be definitely a lot easier to use a sided canvas on a table easel instead of panels. Alright, so I'm going to hold it a little bit more carefully this time. So next we're going to work up on the top above the eye. Kind of blending that in with our yellow. I'm also going to add some of this lightness right here along that shadow. And a little bit more along here. Getting a little too white, so I'm going to add a little bit more yellow ochre. Alright, so this color is actually, there's some really beautiful highlights right below the eye, like right there. And I'm still going to leave a lot of that yellow, but use this as our highlights, first bunch of highlights. And this kind of trails over top and front of the face, but I'm still having that base of yellow. Then I'm going to bring it down on that other side, that other nostril, but not covering up that gray. We want to keep that gray. Alright, so our lightest part is going to be there, so I'm going to add lots more white. We're almost at complete white. And let's add some highlights with that. We're also going to go on the bridge of the nose and make that white too. As well as here on that side of the eye. Definitely here along a highlight along that shadow on the bottom of the neck and chest. And you'll find that it does mix with those colors that we've applied, and that's okay. I'm going to get more on that side. Because you can always add more layers over top. Now I'm going to kind of go backwards, and I know this is hard when it comes to mixing colors because we want to get like an in-between. We want to get like that color again because we have some areas on the side of the face that we want to pull in, we want to grab with this highlight. So subtle, but definitely there. And I kept that outline of yellow around it. Oh yeah. And that nostril here too. We want that to be real light, so I'm going to add more white. So if you need to go over any other highlights that I'm doing right now, because acrylic dries darker than when it's wet. But be careful how much you're applying, because sometimes we lose those shadows and those values by overworking it. So don't overwork it. But if you need to layer because it kind of blended, because we were working wet into wet with some of those colors, then you can add that. Like I'm doing now, I'm just lightening that part up. One part that we did forget, and we're going to use our grays for this, is a dark gray, but lighter than the gray that we made here, because it gradually gets a little bit lighter in the front part of the eye. So let's test this. This is good. I'm using my round detail brush for this. You can use any round detail brush. It actually becomes, in the very front, I'm going to add a dab of white because it gets lighter there, the very front. And with that light gray, very carefully use a round detail brush, the point of it, or a rigger brush. I'm going to carefully pull down those eyelashes over top that white part. I'm going to have to probably cut in with my black. I'm actually bringing some gray in the side there because I see it's darker on the left side or on the right side, and right above the eye like that. Almost looks like the horse is closing its eyes. I kind of like that. But I know that that eyelash kind of goes off that shadow like that. That looks even better. It kind of looks like the horse is closing its eyes. So if you need to, which is what I'm doing right now, going back with my black and just making things a little bit more defined. You know what I'm also thinking we'll need to do is create a little bit lighter gray, and with a very small brush go over that other gray with highlights. See how I'm doing this? I am actually just laying down highlights over top that previous gray. And then going back with my black to fix up any mistakes. Now as I'm working on this part of the eye, I'm noticing that there's some parts of grays that we've added that we can touch up and also add more to. So what we're going to do is I want to use a medium gray. You can even use what we were just using. Let's see if this is that's too dark. I'm going to add some lighter grays around the horse's face. Okay, so this is a little bit lighter. Bring some of these grays up into the hair. So I have some strands that I painted in, but I actually want to bring this back so that we have a base behind that fur, behind that hair. Okay, with a medium gray. So I kind of am leaving those two strands there, kind of mix it up, but I'm just going to paint behind it all the way up pretty much with my gray. You can even start making that little wavy because this hair is so flowing in the wind. You can even start doing that now, cutting into your blue background. But I have those little strips in the front. All right, so let's let that dry, and then we'll go back to touching up those areas around the face. Now, one thing I just noticed here is we made this part a dark gray. Well, I'm actually lightening it up so it's the same gray as what we applied to the fur, to the hair. Because that should be a little bit lighter gray, and then underneath it I'll add some more black to this to touch up that dark gray that we applied earlier. I know you're probably thinking that's a little odd, this is kind of a dark gray and it leads into a light gray. Well, I'm going to blend it right now so that that's darker on the bottom part here. And I also noticed there's a bit of darkness that trails down the nostril like that. Makes a huge difference. I'm going to touch up that nostril, bring that down a bit. Just touching up some of these areas around the mouth. This shadow should go all the way down. And I'm going to bring this up a little bit into that darkest part of the hair. Alright, so this area right here, just to make it all work together, I'm going to make this the darkest part of the hair. Actually going over this area just because in the photo it's pretty dark underneath here, so I'm just going over that. I'm going to cover up all of these hairs right here, not this one, but definitely this one. Alright, so with my dark gray, I'm going to actually go a little bit darker in some of these areas where there's just pockets of hair. Alright, so up and down with my round brush, I'm going to create just little areas that are a little bit darker in the back. And definitely some along the side here. Doesn't have to be the exact placement as the reference photo. Remember, don't overdo it, because that can really, sometimes less is more. A lot of time, less is more with paintings. While we let that hair dry, I'm going to work on that ear, which I left out, my fault. Forgot about that ear, and I'm going back to a light yellow, not our lightest yellow, but pretty darn light. And with a flat brush, I'm just going to fill that in carefully around that background. Okay, we lay down our darkest yellow because we're going to add pretty much straight white while it's wet to the front of it. It's getting a good amount of light from behind, and I got to add more white to my paint palette. And while this is dry, guys, I'm going to go in with white just straight white, and I'm going to fill in those lightest parts of the horse. So we have highlights on the nostrils, highlights on the bridge of the nose, highlights on that other eye. Oh, and there's a highlight definitely right here. I'm just adding a little bit of my white highlights to those areas, so subtly. I'm not pushing down much on my brush. Just to the front part of that horse, and with my white, I'm also going to go in along that dark shadow and add some more highlights sporadically. I kind of want it to be a little bit looser. A great kind of base for gold is this yellow ochre, and so I'm going to add some yellow, some white to a lot of yellow ochre. I want it pretty dark, and with a liner brush I'm just going to fill in, first starting out at the bottom, but then I'm going to start working in around those lines, the sketch lines, with this yellow. You can use any color you'd like for this horn. It doesn't have to be gold horn. You want a rounded edge around each little section. So take your time, no rush. Now, at this point, I found it a little difficult to go up the horn doing each section, each ring, while still keeping the horn straight. So if it helps you, what might be easier than this technique is to create a full coat that you paint over the whole horn first, let that dry, and then go back in with the rings. That way you have a straight line to follow. And of course, if you make any mistakes, you can go back in with your dark purples and blues for the background and cut in around any of your mistakes. So I'm going to fix it up by probably cutting into it with my background, but we'll see how I can pull it off. All right, let's let that dry, and then we can go in with those highlights inside each little. I'm going to touch them up a little bit. Now for that hair. So I recommend using a flat brush, a small or large. I'm going to use this small one, size 7, fine touch. And what we're going to do is with a light gray, very light gray than any of the grays we've added. Long strands of hair flowing in the air. I'm going to start from the top where it's the lightest part with my medium to light gray. And I'm just going to start choosing next to those areas that are dark. That's where I'm going to find it. So I don't want to paint over those dark areas. I kind of want to paint over top or alongside of it. One little artist tip that I learned while painting this is it helps to start with thick clumps of hair and then start layering to smaller little brushes and smaller little hairs instead of doing every little hair one at a time. So start large and work small. They're going to be curly or more like wavy. They're also going to go off into our background. This is such a fun part. I really like this part. So on the top it should be the lightest hair. So I just added lots more white to my gray, and I'm going to start adding a little bit lighter hairs, but they're going to be mostly at the top of the head. And if you need to, because you've gone over it so many times, let it dry and then go back with your very light strands of hair. I'm going to use white, a lot more white this time with yellow ochre, and we're going to fill in these little sections very carefully on the horn. I'm going to be a little bit lighter and more precise at the very top. And I'm going to go over that one more time when it's dry, just to get those, making sure this part is the lightest part, and behind it's going to be the darkest part and towards the bottom. Now I've had an epiphany. A way I can add some purples into this beautiful painting is, once again, going back to my background. I'm going to pull in a color we already have, which is phthalo blue, with some of my violet, and right to pull out those yellows right next to that horn. Oops, I went over my ear. Well, I'm going to touch that up later, and I'm going to pull that down around it, adding a tiny bit of white as I move down my canvas. Here's my chance to cover up that white that I accidentally added. You know what? I'm going to pull this down even more right along this area where we made it light. Remember that? Alright friends, this is where I get all into my galaxy art. I'm going to go in with stars and then finish up that hair. All right, so stars are so simple and so much fun. They're just simply, and we're going to put them into the background. It's going to cut into some of our horse. But these are just simply dots that I put with a detail brush. And I'm going to put that over top some of the purple areas that we've added. Here is where I'm inspired to create these northern lights right above and behind the horn. So I'm using violet with white, and slowly but surely I'm going to layer to a streak of light purple that goes through the sky but also blends into that navy blue, phthalo blue, and dark violet. So this helps if you use wet paint for all these layers. So you might have to freshen up your violet and the phthalo blue and the navy blue to make this blend in. And acrylic paint dries dark, so you'll probably have to add a few layers, and then at the end we can add the stars once this northern light is in. I had to go over the stars a few times to get that right, but just take your time. It might take a little while. Once you have your northern lights in, you can add more than just one streak, by the way. Then you would go back with your white dots for the stars. I'm just trailing these stars all the way around my canvas, and I'm probably going to have them go mostly up here, and then I might get a little bit lighter with my blues down here, almost looking like the sky starting. I always go back to my galaxy art because I just love outer space. I'm obsessed with the stars, and when it's wintertime you can really see them. So it almost seems like my winter art has more stars in it than my summer art. I'm going to stop the stars just a little bit above the nostril, and I'm going to go in with white and phthalo blue to create a medium, bright, vibrant blue for underneath the jaw and around, so that we can start creating little clouds, almost to look like a night sky, the little sleepy time vibes to it, and that'll trail right underneath those stars to the right, lower right hand side of the canvas. Adding a little bit of white to the very bottom, very loosely too. And I'm going to pull in some more of that phthalo blue without as much white on it, so that I can kind of blend that in nicely to those darker areas. I almost kind of want to make it look like clouds, so I'm really mixing loosely some whites. And I really want to pull out this purple up here. I really want to pull out the lightness in it. So I'm just going to create a little bit more of a lighter purple there with violet and my white. So sporadically, I'm using my fingers to kind of blend that in to look like northern lights. Oh, this is so wonderful, guys. This is going to be great. So next I'm working on white, just with my flat brush and just with white. And I'm going to make my last strands of hair the lightest strands. So it's going to be, hey, and guess what? What if we put some purple strands in there? I'm going to pull in a little bit of white and purple together. There we go. This is going to be awesome. So I'm going to add some purple into there. Not a whole lot, just some. Oh, that's going to be cool. I added a little bit darker purples to those darker areas back here. Oh, and I think I'll stop there with the purples. Now that is one awesome unicorn. That kind of happened on accident. It's just because it all mixed in with my whites. And there's been a lot of accidents in this painting. But that's just what you gotta roll with. When you allow those accidents to happen and actually use them to your advantage. So I'm just going in with my white. And I'm going to pull out some of those whites, the very top. What if we pulled some of this light hair out into over top the neck? And the last thing, other than the touch-ups for some of the, the ear and other areas, I'm going to work on adding gold to that horn. I'm going to mix up my gold. This is our Tesa gold, my favorite way to kind of finish off a painting. I'm going to mix up a little bit of white into it. I'm going to add some gold to the horn, the lighter parts of the horn. I'm going to add a little bit more white because that's kind of hard to see. It's really hard to do this, actually. I find it difficult. I keep wanting to go too far into that background. I want to keep the top of the horn the lightest part. That's a tricky one. I might have to go back. What I'm going to do is let that dry and go back and outline that with a dark, just probably straight yellow ochre. And then maybe even touch that up again with my purples for the background. Alright, so now it's touch-up time. You can add more stars, you can add more clouds, you can add more hair. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to touch that part up. I know that. And yeah, so now until the end, you'll be watching the things that I want to do to improve my painting. I'm going to start first with that ear, going back to a light yellow with my yellow ochre and white. Cutting in a little bit more with my dark yellow. I'm just using yellow ochre at this point. Those areas that are real dark, just using yellow ochre, and I'm going to kind of pull that up. Or that white that happened when it fell. I think I want to make it a little bit darker here too, with yellow ochre. And I'm also going to make the top of that ear dark yellow. I know that there's a little line right there that I want to play on. I'm also going to use some yellow ochre just to darken this front part up. It's kind of dark right here, so yellow ochre just to darken that up. And then I'm going to add a little bit more hair. I'm going to do a gray. Now I know there's this adorable little owl in the background in the reference photo, and if you want to do that over here, like riding the horse with that lady, go for it. I'd love to see it if you do. Now it's at this point where you might want to just step back. Instead of looking at my painting, look at yours and see what it needs. Sometimes you're trying to emulate my painting so much that it's important for you to look at your own and see where you need to make improvements and little adjustments. Right now I'm just going in some of those darker areas and adding purple instead of my dark gray. If you want to make a shooting star, which I love to make, you just simply find a star and pull it down. You have a little bit of paint left, you find the center and you pull it down and relieve pressure off of your brush just lightly. I think I'm going to take a tiny bit of gray and use that to outline the horns, because with the yellow ochre it seems like it's difficult. This is way better. You can actually see it. So I added a little bit of yellow ochre, white, and gray. I definitely think that this painting teaches us to appreciate the process no matter how crazy and uncertain it can be. It can lead to beautiful things in the end, and we just need to be patient and endure. So guys, thank you so much for painting with me. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I look forward to more painting tutorials coming in the future. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And if this was helpful for you, make sure you subscribe for more animal painting tutorials for Stress Relief. Have a blessed day. I'll see you next week. Bye.